Yeah, I got a story to tell. I know they want me to fail. If they throw me into a cell, I know wife, she paying the bill. Cause I can't afford to be quiet. My city is dying and children are crying. Be alert, not devour. The enemy's prowling you just like a lion. But we got the keys, I promise you. Hold on to the peace inside of you. No, I'm not alone. You're not alone. You got an army who follows you. It's time to rise up, lift your eyes up, yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Darley. Since 1908, Darley has been proudly serving first responders and military with best-in-class pumps, equipment, unmanned systems, tactical vehicles, and defense solutions. Learn more at darley.com. That's DARLEY.com. You serve others, we serve you. KC. This is Reggie with Let's Talk Shop KC podcast. I got some very special guests in the building today. My man, Justin and Ron. They are the owners of Urban Cafe. Actually, it's just Urban now, if I'm not mistaken, on 34th and Troost. And what a blessing to be able to have two young black men as entrepreneurs coming to talk about how they did it, why they did it, and more importantly, you can do it. And so we're going to dive into that. Before we dive in, anybody want to open us up in prayer?
I can do it.
My man.
All right. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for gathering us here today. We thank you for your grace, your love, your blessings, for keeping us moving. In your name, we just want to walk in your will. And within your will, we just want to spread happiness, love, grow the community. We just all about nurturing each other in community. Yes. And in the Lord's name, in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So before we get started, go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience, please.
Yeah, I'm Ron Evans, CFO of Urban.
And I'm Justin Clark, CEO of Urban.
So if you guys notice, this is one of the first times that I had two guests on this show. And so I thought it was super important, considering the fact that we're born and raised right here in Kansas City, Missouri. Some people call it Killer City, right? And so there's always just a constant discourse going on in the city amongst people. And so you guys, you said that you're the CEO and you're the CEO of this one restaurant, correct?
CFO.
Talk to us about that a little bit.
Well, CFO is just pretty much the financial advisor or the financial officer. And as far as CEO, it's just pretty much really the head, the lead, where we kind of build everything around.
Okay. Yeah. And so one thing that I've noticed, because there's a lot of research that goes into these shows to being able to bring in the best content, is that when I Google searched Urban Cafe, I seen a lot of you, Justin.
Yeah.
So can you talk to me about how that works when you talk about you being the face of the brand, or is that the case?
Well, I think it started out in 2016. I opened up Urban Cafe, and then my wife was there. My wife, she had a salon next door, so we kind of did a whole build out where it was just hammering nails. It was the grind. We took over the old Freaks tattoo shop. I think it was some legal stuff he had going on. I think he went to prison or something. I don't know. But so anyway, we had an opportunity where my wife is a hairstylist. So she, one of the guys that we rented her salon from had just bought a new building, 41st and Troost, and we decided to, take it over. And so we moved upstairs. It was a mixed-use property. Had the kids. At the time, came back from Houston, Texas, and I took a job at Truman, cooking for the doctors at Truman at the time. So there, we just kind of took a little leap and invested in my wife first. She always wanted to shop, so we just gutted it all out, and then And he tried to put another tattoo parlor in there and didn't work out. A lot of drugs, a lot of, craziness. So they're out. And then, I just flipped, a little bit of money and decided to invest in myself. And from here on out, and this is where it ended up.
So Ron, we're in, and we'll dive into.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The funny part is, when I first opened Urban Cafe, Ron ended up just so happened to be there, and I had a line out the door, and I was like, man, I don't know what to do, because at first it was just me. I was doing everything because it was a little small 10-seat place, and Ron just so happened to be there, and he ended up sticking with me the whole day. And I know he had plans, but hey. That's just how it worked. It was the universe at that time. I ain't know.
Bro, listen to me. We gotta highlight that, right? And so you talk about taking one step and then allowing God to take two.
Yeah.
Right? So here it is that you was in this situation where you started something. You didn't know you didn't know what the community, the feedback that you were going to get. You were overwhelmed in that sense, and then somebody was standing right before you that God was able to use to being able to help carry out your dream.
Yeah. But I seen
Think about that.
Yeah. I seen the opportunity though. I think at that time when I was living on 41st and Troost, there was a lot of it seems like there was a lot of things that were needed in that area, from 41st, from 63rd Street all the way over to downtown, there was nothing. There was no food at the time. So I just kind of took advantage of the opportunity, to be honest. My background in Chicago and going to French culinary school and kind of worked with I had a great opportunity. I believe I was blessed to have, was just in the industry and had a really good, how should I say, I'm sorry, I had a brain. No, it's just that, most people get exposed to things like I'm glad that I didn't start out like at Applebee's or something. You know what I'm saying? I'm glad that my experiences as a kid were 4-star diamond hotels and Michelin star restaurants versus chain and other things. So I'm just blessed for the opportunities that I had as a young person, that I've seen. So in order to call that 41st, you own a restaurant, they automatically think it's a soul food or a barbecue place, which is weird. But I think it's because I'm black. It's all right. But I did something completely opposite. Yeah, completely opposite. And I think that's what stood out the most.
So you feel like because of the fact that you didn't play on people's demographics, all of those things, that's what separates Urban from another restaurant.
For sure.
I want you to jump in there real quick. So let's back up just a little bit. So he started with his wife, and then you were standing in the line as a customer, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, I already knew he was building it. He was he had brought it to me, and he was like, man, this is what I'm thinking about doing. And next thing I know it, man, he's over on the other side doing piece by piece. I'm gonna do it like this. Every time I came back, he had something else done. We went from electrical to moving stuff out, getting things together, and I just watched it, And I think at the time I was going back and forth out of town. I had just landed my first engineering job, so I was just kind of tuned in. We talk a lot, and whenever he said he was opening up, I was like, shoot, I'm gonna be there. So, man, I came in that day, and I was like he said, man, I was coming in here expecting to just sit down and eat some food. And then I was like, oh, shoot, he need me, man. And hop behind this register real quick.
Wow.
He jumped right on in, though.
Man, hold on a second, man. Let's talk about this just for a second. So you went to school to be an engineer. And I'm talking about anybody that's watching knows that's 4 years of bachelor's. That's potentially additional years of post.
Oh yeah,
right.
You gotta, yup. It's a process. Man, it took me 5 years. I ain't gonna even stunt. Hey, I couldn't do the 16 hours a semester. It was a lot, but it was a lot because I still had to pay for myself to go through college. So I had to make room to be able to still try to make some money and get through it. But yeah, it's 4 or 5 years in that school where they will tear you down, and then after that you got to work another 4 years or so minimum to get your PE license so that you could be a state engineer or state registered engineer or whatnot. But yeah.
So walk me through before we go back into more of your childhood, because I want to be able to perform a step up to this point, right? But before we dive back, walk me through the conversation that you had with your parents after they sent you to school to be an engineer, and you like, hey, you know what? X that. I'm about to join in with my boy, and we about to do this restaurant thing.
No, it didn't work like that.
Yeah.
Okay, talk to me.
Shoot, I ain't gonna lie. I always wanted to be either an engineer or architect. My father's a carpenter. His twin was really into like technology and computers and stuff like that. Man, you put those two together, you got an engineer. You know what I'm saying? So I always kind of had that in my mind. I always liked to build. It didn't matter what I was building. I just like to put things together. That could have been a building, or it could have been a plan. It doesn't really matter. But when I went to college, I was the first one on my mom's side to even talk about school, or to even aspire to do that. So whenever I went to college, I put in that work, man. Filled out that FAFSA. I started knocking on doors, calling companies, trying to figure out who can sponsor, give me scholarships. So me being an engineer is just something that I just wanted to do, and I just kind of put myself through the ringer to try to accomplish that. But at the end of the day, I chose to be electrical because I remember going to one of those college visit things where people come in and they tell you how much everybody makes. They choosing different careers. And I seen electrical engineer. I'm like, shoot, that's one of the top paying ones. But it was also one of the ones that people didn't really go after, and then it was for whatever reason. And I was like, shoot, I'm going after that one, And then when I got there, I figured out why. But
was it hard, boss?
Oh man, I think whenever I graduated, it was only 13 electrical engineers when we graduated. So
and I'm talking about how many started when you say it was
when
only 13.
Oh shoot, when I started, man, we was in auditorium, so at least 700-800 students, but in like the general engineering education or whatnot classes that they had us take, it was probably like 2,000-3,000 of us. But by sophomore year, you see that number drop like over 80%. And then by the time I was in my second and third year, man, all my classes was like 5 to 10 people,
What do you think? It sounds like you came from humble beginnings, but what do you think was able to be that driving force in you being able to finish college?
Man, because when I look back, I didn't want to be stuck at home. I seen everybody doing the same thing, and I didn't want to become my environment. I wanted to bring something to my environment that'll kind of help elevate people to say, hey man, it's possible. I was just playing outside with him. We was playing flag football. We was playing tag. We was doing this. We was doing that. I come from where everybody else come from, and I just pushed through it. So I think my biggest thing was just inspiring. Like, man, we don't have to be what they make us to be. We don't have to be what the only thing that they presented us was selling drugs and hustling and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, I was a hustler. I think we've been hustlers since the beginning, but it ain't all that it is to it, and it ain't all we have to be.
The biggest thing that I want to focus on in that statement is that you said that nobody in your family had ever been to college.
Oh yeah, they weren't thinking about no college.
So what made you say that going to college to be an engineer was the thing that was going to provide you a different lifestyle if you didn't have an example to be able to choose from?
Because it seemed impossible to everybody.
So was it more of a pride, like an ego, like, hey, because nobody else did it, I'm going to do it, just to kind of have that bragging right? Or does that make sense? Like, I'm trying to figure out what exactly was that motivator at 12 o'clock at night when everybody's kicking it, partying, and doing all those things. You had to set time aside to be able to say, hey, at some point, the motives of why you did it was going to come to a head. And I'm trying to figure out how does one that's in college facing those same motives, look at your story and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to keep going?
I would say, I think I was the nerd of the family.
Okay.
And I try to stay quiet about it. I try to stay cool, quiet. But for the fact of where, it could be pride, but at the same time, I think it was just, I didn't want nobody to write my story. I didn't want nobody to tell me what my destiny was going to be. So for me, it was, I didn't want to fit in this box that everybody had. And I always felt that I had some type of potential, and that only reason why is because I look around and I just feel different. I sit there be doing math and doing all this stuff in my head, and everybody looking at me like, this guy try to make me feel bad about it sometimes, and I'm like, man, it's more to us, you know what I'm saying? So I think it was more trying to prove to myself that what they were saying wasn't true, trying to prove to everybody else, but then also to try to, like I said, to inspire. It's like, man, whatever you think you want to be, you can do it. Man, I chose something out the book. Like I said, I always wanted to be a builder. I didn't know I was going to be an electrical engineer. I just chose it because everybody said that they couldn't do it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. You know what I'm saying? And once I do that, then I'm going to show y'all that whatever you pick and choose, you can do it too if you really stick to it. So going through the parties, going through all of the temptations and stuff like that, I'm like, nah, I'm on a mission. You know what I'm saying? Because whenever I get there, everybody going to see. And then whenever everybody see, they going to look at themselves and be like, man, where did I see myself? No, but I would say, though, my first love was basketball.
Yep.
That's how we met.
Yeah, we about to hit it right now.
Basketball was it. But, my dad would say, only this many people make it as basketball players. So I was like, all right. He's like, but what else do you want to do? So I was like, I always had that in the back of my mind. I like to build and stuff like that. But I really tried to play basketball, and use engineering or architecture as a backup. And I'm like, well, shoot, the hoop dreams ain't working.
Man, when did you know to let it go? Because some people, I feel like, don't know when to let it go. They'll keep pursuing something,
Oh, yeah.
and they don't realize that, hey, you know what? It might be time to hang it up.
You know what? It made sense. Like, I hung it up my freshman year of college. Like, halfway through, I think the first year, I couldn't walk on. I went to Mizzou, by the way.
Okay.
And I couldn't walk on as a freshman. You had to be a sophomore to walk on. Or your second year, you had to have all this report and build up. So, I think whenever I first got there, I was hitting the rec center every day. Like I was about to go to, I had game time this Friday. And I was going pretty hard at it. But it just didn't make sense anymore. I went to a tryout. Well, actually, it was a whole process. I got in touch with the coach, sent him tapes, did all this weird stuff, went to all these meetings that they required to be able to walk on. And then I literally prepared for the day that tryouts, man. I walk all the way up there to the gym, and I walked. It was a long walk, and in my whole time, I'm getting my mind around. I'm like, man, I'm about to go in here and kill it. You know what I'm saying? They about to pick me up. This felt like a pickup game to me. Man, I got there. I knocked on the door. They didn't want to let me in. Act like they didn't know who I was. I'm like, bro, I've been talking to y'all this whole time. And then I finally got in. I forget who the coach was at that time. I think it was the year after Coach Snyder or something like that. I forget what his name was. But I must have knocked on the door. I hear him in the background. My heart start beating fast. You know what I'm saying? Because I hear that. I'm like, I'm about to walk in this gym. You know what I'm saying? I look in there. I'm seeing everybody run up and down, running lines. And I'm like, all right, yep, I'm ready. I knock on the door. Dude came out. He pushed the door open. And it kind of pushed me back a little bit. And he was like, what you doing here? I'm like, we've been talking about this. I'm like, sure, I'm trying to walk on. I'm trying to try out. And he was like, yeah, we ain't doing walk-ons this year. I'm like, what? So that whole walk back home, it was a transition in my mind. I was like, nah, I can't keep going like this. I can't pay for school right now. I'm trying to make something. I'm trying to do something. I'm like, man, I ain't got time for them playing with me. So I continued playing basketball, but something in me on that walk home was like, man, I don't think basketball's going to be it for me. You know what I'm saying? And I was already there as engineer, and I'm like, I think this is the path. So then I just got really involved in that. Like I said, I still worked out and try to stay healthy and stuff like that. But then my mind just switched. It was just like, nah, I got to do something different. You know what I'm saying?
I think it's interesting that you had that internal compass that was able to switch gears for you. And I guess to us that have children, you want to be able to instill in them hope and longevity and just to continue on after your dream. An example being Michael Jordan didn't even make his high school basketball team. So how do you know the difference between being able to persevere through something and then knowing when to hang it up? Like what is that dividing factor of saying, hey, I'm gonna be the next Michael Jordan and maybe I didn't make my high school basketball team, but I'm gonna be the greatest basketball player, versus saying, hey, you know what? Let me switch out.
It just made sense. You know, it made sense. It felt like with basketball, I was like working and working, hitting the wall, working and working, hitting the wall. And usually, you usually bust through the wall. But then I had this other side where it was like, man, I was doing it effortlessly. You know, it was like it was just coming. You know, I get in class, like I don't have to study for an exam. I just go to class, I take notes, and then I go back home. I might review them, but I never study. Then I go right back in, pass the test, or just the opportunities. Like, hey man, can you do this? And can you come and help me with this? Ask me questions, and I'm solving problems. And it just came effortlessly. So, from there, it was just like, nah, this just makes more sense. This is the path of least resistance. And this is over here, I'm getting nothing but resistance. I love it. But man, I got 4 or 5 years and I'm paying for this right now, so, it just made sense, and whenever it clicked like that, I'm like, dang, and as soon as I let that go, it felt like everything else over here just started taking off. Now I got interns, I'm in different groups, I got different people pulling me left and right. I'm making all these different friends, all these different backgrounds, from Indian to Hispanic to Asians, I'm just starting. It was like, man, a whole world opened up once I said, nah, I ain't gonna do this basketball thing. I'm gonna pursue this education.
Young people, listen to me. He touched on so many things that I want to make sure that you understand. The biggest thing is that you're going to meet resistance in life, and you got to know the difference between knowing when to pivot. And a big part of the biggest thing that I wanted to be able to capitalize on is that God has to be the source of your strength, in the sense of being able to pray without ceasing that you make that right decision. The biggest thing is that in making such a decision that could be detrimental or instrumental to your life is being able to have discernment of knowing when to pivot. And the biggest thing is that when knowing when to pivot, knowing exactly that there may be a consequence for you pivoting, or it may be one of the most blissful things of your life when you pivot. You just got to be willing to being able to step out on faith like these brothers did. I'm a swing back over to you, Justin, and talk about, when we talk about pivoting, we talk about challenges, we talk about all of these things. What were those? And we already know about the one of, obviously you needed more staff to be able to help you because it seemed like the community supported you. Mm-hmm. But if there was one thing that you would say that Urban has faced in regards to knowing when to pivot or knowing how to navigate challenges, what would that be?
I don't know. I think, Urban, well, I don't know. I've been doing this, it's been about 8-9 years now. So I would say just the people, learning when, trying to come up with new ideas and new things, and trying to reach a certain demographic, or you can't go too far. The challenge is not really going too far. You can't go too far. All the experiences I had, I know for a fact that I cannot do in my own personal,
So when you say you can't go too far, you're referring to your own capacity.
Yeah,
Okay.
Or else it'll be too, it'll be like, what is, I don't know. It'd be too controversial. Seem like it'd be too much. I don't know. Because I'm saying that it's because of the location. This is all new. We're doing something that's new, in an area where it's just never been done before. So it's like you can't go too far all at one time. You gotta like, I don't know.
Have you always talked to me about Chicago
Oh.
and being able to get to Kansas City and some of those things?
Okay, so I went to culinary school in Chicago. So I
Okay.
lived there for about 4.5, 5 years.
Okay.
That was just straight grinding. I walked in everybody's restaurant, knocked on doors, see if I could work for free. Then I had to go to school every morning, 6 a.m. So I was up at 4, caught the L, be at school by 6, leave school by 2 o'clock, and go straight to work. And then get home at 12 at night, 1 o'clock sometimes. And this was just a normal thing for me for like 4 or 5 years straight. And again, I was young, I was hungry. I didn't, I just wanted something. I wanted to change. But I'm from Arkansas originally, so I don't know. I just, I think the challenge was just me. I don't know. I think the hardest thing I ever done in my whole entire life was complete culinary school. I think that was probably the toughest thing.
Why?
I don't know. It felt like it just seemed like it. I don't think I haven't had any other real challenges in my life.
What specifically, like if a young person were to be watching you go through culinary school and you said it was the hardest challenge, like what specifically was hard about culinary school?
Is completing it, finishing out.
Were they written tests? Were there?
No, it wasn't all that. It was just the fact that, just like what Ron said earlier, is like he had a class full of 800 people. He started out, auditorium, and then by the time they graduated, it was only 13. So the hardest thing was to literally stick to the day-to-day, keep grinding, keep moving, not being discouraged, and just keep going until you actually complete. Like, it's like saying something, you can't say, you know what I'm saying? It's like completing the whole thing.
How long is culinary school?
It was 3 years.
3 years. So you're married at the time during culinary school?
Yes.
You have children at the time during
Yes,
culinary school?
3 girls.
And so you're married, children, and you're going to school. So when you talk about completing it, what you're saying is
it
that
was hard all around.
all the way around, because not only did you have the in-class work, but you also had being a dad, you had being a husband. And so it wasn't just a sacrifice for you, but it sounded like it was a sacrifice for everybody.
It really was. And that's why I felt like it was the hardest thing, because I had to do all those roles. I had to, I wasn't thinking about me the whole time. I was thinking about the future. I always think ahead anyway. So I think that was just the thing, It's kind of complete it. You say something, you do it. You just stick to it. You keep, keep pushing.
I think it's interesting that you two gentlemen, of all the places that God could have placed your restaurant, he placed it on Troost. Right? I mean, think about that, right? Kansas City is such a large place to be at.
I think that's my fault.
Yeah.
Okay,
that
talk
was
to
it,
me.
yo.
Talk to me about it. Troost of
I
all
never
places.
said this. I recently told you.
Yeah, yo.
I think I cheated a little bit. I was the personal chef for like the CEO and the doctors and everybody at Truman
Hospital.
Yeah, Truman Hospital.
Okay.
So I was in charge of like banquets and stuff. So that the hospital is a nonprofit, right?
Sure.
So we got to win people over so they can get some money. So there's been times where I kind of, listen in on some of the meetings and see developers come in there and propose different things. And I actually seen a couple of plans for Troost before 3-4 years before it actually happened. So it was just, at that time, I was actually looking at real estate, and I was looking at buildings because a lot of things were super cheap at the time.
Okay.
So, but I don't know. I really think I cheated a little bit, or either that or I just paid attention and actually just didn't. So
I think that's important. You talk about that you cheated or that you were at the right place at the right time.
yeah, so yeah, you could say it. Yeah,
But the biggest thing is that you had to be savvy enough to be able to understand that you didn't have the capacity to be able to do something different. And so you listened in on some of the other conversations. Mm-hmm. Did you ever talk about how did you get to the point to where you actually had a storefront Were there grants involved? Were there
No.
like, who put that money up? You said you got a wife, you got kids. Like, how in the world did you afford to do this?
Well, my wife, I was always fortunate enough to make pretty good money in hotels and stuff. I was always the head chef, or sous chef or whatever it was. So I made pretty decent money. And then my wife, when she opened up her salon, everybody knows, it costs you how much it costs for you get your hair done, and then she had lashes and all that stuff, all the different weaves. Anyway, it costs.
Yeah.
So my wife at the time, she was bringing in some banks. So we kind of just saved up a little bit. It only cost me $12,000 literally to do that. But I had help. I had my stepdad, at the time, my boy Suave, rest in peace, Ron, he came through. I'm not a hammer and nail, what I'm saying, but I can go on YouTube and figure it out, and that's what I did. I never done anything like this before, and so I ended up putting up damn walls and shit. I don't know. I know how to paint.
Yeah.
But I don't know about, doing all that extra stuff. It was a ceiling coming down. It was a lot, but it was real bad.
I remember.
But the thing is that, it didn't cost me nothing, and I just I gambled on myself. I kind of betted on myself, and I knew it can work because of the area was already changing a little bit, only because everything was so cheap. So you got a lot of demographics coming in the area, that was buying up stuff. You had a lot of, at one point they said it was predominantly all black on Troost. But now it wasn't like that. It was like white people, you got Mexican people, you got all these different people, and they were all trying to change the neighborhood, but they didn't know why or didn't know how to do it. But everybody knows Sunday dinner or having a dinner with someone or having a meal with someone, that's all community alone. So I just chose to do the menu, which was, I just chose to be all over the board, to be honest with you. I didn't want to just focus on one demographic at all. I just wanted to focus on everybody, at that time in that neighborhood. When I walk outside, I do see black, but then again, I don't want to say that. No. Never mind. But then again, I do see people with money and people without money. You know what I'm saying? And then you see black people with money and white people with money. You see white people that's poor, and you see black people poor. But the goal is to try to figure out how to meet in the middle, and then that's what I did.
Who is Urban's client? Who are you targeting? Who is your client?
Our client are professionals and people that, that has a certain lifestyle. That's why we have plant-based options. Some people are, people that are conscious about what they put in their body, especially then, I had plant-based options on the menu, but at that time, nobody didn't know what it was. They see one thing that's vegetarian, they say, oh, I'm a whole vegetarian restaurant. Meanwhile, I got a chicken Philly and a pork belly sandwich. It was weird. It was so weird.
So let's talk about that, because I know in previous conversations that Urban started out with a different menu on board, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and then now we're talking about that it's plant-based. So tell me, what was that transition like? When was it where y'all was serving whatever, and then now y'all serving plant-based?
No. We always served plant-based.
Okay.
We always had a couple of options. We always had options.
Okay.
That was the thing. When we first started, it was just a panini press and a smoker, and then we expanded to a hood system and a full kitchen. Yeah. And then now we have walk-in coolers and a full kitchen and a bigger space. So that it was just all about, leveling up the whole time. But the thing is that we always did and always will do is always have options for everybody, not just one demographic or one person. And I think that's what stood out the most at that time, because it was only probably like one vegan restaurant at the time, one or two.
Veganism probably became a thing.
It was like
COVID or something.
Yeah.
Busted open.
Everybody
trying to is on this health thing.
I'm a vegan on Sunday.
You're a vegan, bro.
But he's
Right,
actual
real
vegan.
vegan.
Yeah.
You're a real vegan. So talk to me about that.
Shoot, man. Whenever he'll tell you how horrible my diet was whenever I was a kid. Boy, he used to give me hell
I used to
about
say,
it.
I used to say shit about it.
Yeah.
Y'all 12 years old. You giving him a hard time about his diet.
Because my mama never let me eat the stuff he ate.
Yeah.
So when I ate that stuff, I just feel it. I was like, how can you do this? But it was a problem.
It was bad, man.
Candy,
My face was
snacks.
bad. I wasn't growing no hair. I was all over the place. By sophomore year, though, what really changed me is sophomore year. I think I was I went through some stomach thing, man, and nobody could really figure it out. I went to like several different doctors. One doctor would say one thing, prescribe me something, didn't really work. Another doctor, it's just going back and forth, and I was, I got to when I did that all through college. When I graduated, I'm like, man, I'm like 24 years old, man. I'm taking more pills than my grandma, man. This is crazy. And I was like, man, by the time I turn 40, what is this gonna look like? Am I gonna make it to 40? So man, I changed. The only reason why I changed my diet is, I started dating someone, and she gave me a whole different game and perspective. And then she was like, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? She was like, man, I can't be with nobody who is on trying to, I guess, write their death sentence, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, yeah, that's true. And I was trying to get more back into working out and all that other stuff. So I started changing my diet, man. I did one thing at a time. I went pork, chicken, then beef, then cheese. I started making this whole progression or whatnot. But at the same time, my body started responding differently, man. And I stopped having to take all medication. So whenever I was, kind of going through the process and feeling better about it, it was just all about, this just makes sense. Again, it just makes sense to keep going this direction. So when I was probably about 30 years old is whenever I had the full switch off, and I was like, this is good for me. Body started changing, my face started clearing up, my skin started getting brighter, my hair started growing, and I didn't have to take medication, which was the biggest thing. I was like, dang, I'm taking medication basically to just digest food. So my body, it took me 12 years to figure out that I was taking pills just to help me digest the food that I was eating. All of the candy, all the sugar, all of the pork and all that other good stuff, I was eating that stuff and my body couldn't process it. So whenever I changed that up, I didn't have to take these pills no more. My body was like, yeah, this is where it's at. Again, shit, my body told me. And then I just never looked back.
There's a lot of similarities between you two, but there's a lot of differences too. And so I want you to walk me down that pathway of you jumping up behind that register, hey, I'm about to help out. And then what was the tipping point to, I'm done with this electrical thing and this is what I'm going to do, and how receptive was Justin to it?
Well, shoot, I didn't really jump off the porch to not do engineering and stuff anymore until about 2020.
Okay.
But since we was kids, Justin to talk about stuff, it'll stimulate my mind. And then I start getting all these ideas, and then we go back and forth. So it's always kind of been that relationship with us. You know what I'm saying?
Hold on, let's back up. So you opened in 2016. Mm-hmm. You didn't make the decision to transition until 2020. Yep. So you were sitting in this thing for 4 years essentially prior to committing to it.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even just committing. I was just always committing to helping my bro. Yeah. Whatever he needed, hey, I was there. Like I said, we never stopped talking. And we always talked about starting businesses and having something greater. I didn't know it was going to be a restaurant. I really didn't. I would just always was there, and then whenever it came, well, we did talk about in 2013, 14 about opening up a cigar lounge, we was like,
we still want to do that.
Yeah, we still gonna do that. Yeah, but we would just brainstorm. He's like, yeah, we could do this, we could do that. We got ideas, and that's kind of how we always been. But in 2020, I think I was already kind of building up because I was moving around a lot, I was traveling a lot, and I was kind of feeling like, like I had this talent that I was just kind of being taken advantage of, and I really wasn't being compensated for it, or I wasn't really getting the residuals. But I found everyone else around me was profiting greatly. I come onto the team, and all of a sudden, you got extra projects. But all your projects, I'm doing all the work. You know what I'm saying? But I can't sign my name on nothing. I can't. Everybody else is stamping on my work. You know, and then I got to, I think it was Burns and McDonald, and it was just the last straw. You know, I got there, you know, they threw me in all these different projects, you know, and I'm working through on projects I ain't never did before. I never worked in water, wastewater. You know, now I know how to clean water and make power. I know all kinds of stuff. But, you know, I was sitting there, I had to figure it out, and, you know, they threw me up under the bus, you know, nobody to help me. And I powered through this. And whenever I powered through it, they still didn't want me to put my stamp on it. And not only that, they put me on like a work probation thing where they was like, they withheld my bonuses for like 2 years. I had a bonus. I was supposed to be promised a 22,000.
I remember
grand.
that phone call, boy. He was pissed.
I was hurt. The first one, I was like, all right, man, they got me on this. It took me 2 years. The first one, I was like, all right, I'll give y'all that one, but y'all gonna pay me next year. And it's supposed to go up a percentage every time. Then the next year, it was closer to like 30 grand. And then they didn't give me my money. And I was like, man, God, y'all. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know what I was going to do. I called Justin. He had already been knowing about it. I was like, bro, I got to do something different, man. And it was in the middle of COVID, and I just quit. I didn't even know what I was going to do. I just said, nah, I can't do this no more. You know, whatever it is, shoot, man. I prayed about it. I was like, man, God, shoot, you can't, man. All the times I didn't have resistance. It just ain't working out, or I keep working at it, and it just kind of feel like I get the short end. I was like, man, I'm about to do this. I hope you got me.
Hey, that's wild, bro. To just
I was like,
stop.
I hope you got me. I had kids. I had a whole household.
Bruh.
But I remember coming home upset a lot, you know, and I feel like that was the other thing that pushed me, you know. It's just like me being, you know, in this state of mind and realizing what it's doing to my kids, you know, how it's making my wife feel, you know what I'm saying? How I was just responding, period. And I was like, man, I don't know what it is, but I can't continue. But
Did your wife support your decision?
Oh yeah, but she always supported me though.
Okay.
I've been knowing her since we was best friends. We was real good friends all the way from freshman year of high school. We never even knew we was gonna date. You know what I'm saying? I just felt like she always accepted me. You know what I'm saying? But whenever I did that, she just wanted me to be happy. And I don't think we ever really worried about money too much, because I was always pretty frugal, man. I just take my money and stack it. I only spend my money on making money. And then whenever I make money off my money, I would use that to go out to eat, to go buy me some shoes. But I never used the money that I was working for. I pay my bills.
Right.
But then I'll use that money to make more money. And then I'll use that money to like do everything else. So I always had a base of structure or just a financial stability that I don't think my wife really looked at it as like, all right, we about to struggle now. I think she just had enough faith in me to know that, man, you gonna figure it out. You always do. You know what I'm saying? So whenever I did that, I got with Justin. You know, I told him like, hey, bro, I'm about to do this full time, man. What we gonna do? You know what I'm saying?
So you still had a plan. Maybe not a formal plan, but you knew that you had something to fall back on if something
just
happened.
Opportunities, you
Yeah.
know. Like I said, we always talked about a cigar lounge. We always talked about going into business. We always talked about I was like, man, I think it's now. You know, from the experiences he had from working in all these restaurants, these 5-4-star restaurants, you know, and then from, you know, me going through the background of, you know, just the structure, watching businesses, watching the engineering industry, or just understanding what to do with money, how to or put that stuff together. But, you know, in 2020, I was just like, man, I got to explore other options. And I seen Justin, what he was doing, because like I said, I always was there. And I was like, man, I'm about to go full time behind you, bro. Like you know, he's like Michael Jordan to me. You know what I'm saying? This is build a team around him. And I bet you this is going to explode. So in 2020, we talked about it. We did a lot of planning. You know, we talked about where we was going to go and what we was eventually going to do. I mean, shoot, we was 13 talking about having a bed and breakfast type situation.
Yeah, we was 13 around that time.
So at this time now, we got a foundation. You know, we got experience. I got experience. We got money that we had behind us.
And it only made sense.
It just
only
made
sense, like right on time.
Again, you know, and it was like, nah, this is the way. You know what I'm saying? Resistance over here, trying. Man, dang, is this what we supposed to be doing? Let's try this. This is a slide right here. And then it just escalates, you know what I'm saying? And then from there, it was just straight building and never look back.
So we gotta acknowledge the fact that this is a relationship, and in any given relationship, there's going to be consequences, or maybe I shouldn't say consequences. There's going to be challenges that you face. If there was somebody young that's watching the show that's thinking about maybe being the next Justin or Ron and starting a restaurant and doing it with somebody that they like, what would that look like? What advice would you give those individuals when it comes to navigating relationship?
Man, it's love first, man. You know, love is sacrifice. You know, and then that's really just accepting somebody for who they really are.
Yeah.
Some people are just cool and they just accept them because of what they can bring to the table. And I never really thought about, in my mind, like what I can take from it. You know what I'm saying? It was always been, I think it's been the same way on both sides. It's not like we was cool because of what we can do or who we was. It was just a fact of, you know what I'm saying, shoot, I love you like a brother.
Yeah.
I'm gonna accept you for whoever you are. Attitudes, differences. It's like, dang, man. If I ever was frustrated about something, I looked at myself. I'm like, man, you know what? I can adjust this. And anytime I did that, it just went back and forth, and the relationship just kept growing because it wasn't about, you know, being in a relationship for myself. It was being in a relationship for my bro, you know.
What's the most challenging thing to deal with Ron?
Was trust.
Trust.
Yeah, only because I might have a little bit of trust issues myself anyway. So I think that just because Ron is the only person that I really trust, I could talk to, I can be open with, other than my wife at the time. But shit, sometimes I couldn't even trust her with the things I say. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm gonna like to be open. You know, I can be really. I know that I can be open and vulnerable with Ron, and then he won't be like, you know, he'll tell me straight, you know, and that's the thing, because I'm not really, I'm not like a really emotional person, and but when I can be, when I am, I know that I can, you know, holler at my boy like anytime, and he'll.
So y'all never have disagreements?
Oh, we had plenty.
So talk to me.
But it was mainly
frankly.
him.
Okay, let's talk about
It was because he was going. I don't know what the hell he was going through at the time, but and I think it's because of the school, and it was like the job that was doing him. But it was times to where, you know, he'll vent to me, and then the part I knew I messed up was saying like, well, man, maybe you should. He'd be like, bro, I'm not asking you to try to fix it. I'm just venting. So just listen real quick. So sometimes you just got to listen and not respond at all. And that's something that he actually taught me. And then when I got, you know, and then with my wife, when I got married, she said the same thing. So I was just like, okay, so that's like that, but that's part of a relationship, you know, like when somebody is trying to vent or talk to you or be open with you, sometimes it's best just to listen and not say anything at all. And, you know, because you never know what somebody's going through, you know. And, but yeah, that was one of the biggest challenges that we had. But other than that, it's really trust. You know, I can trust him. I know how his lifestyle is. He know how I am, you know. And sometimes it's not good to do business with your friends, though. They always tell you not to have a partner. But you got to know who your friend and who your partner actually is. You got to look at the history, you know, and look at the facts. You know, you can't be silly. So
y'all challenge that perspective. They always tell you, don't mix business and pleasure.
No.
They say it all the time. And what you guys said is that we understand that adage, but we think that we got enough of a foundation to be able to navigate that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, too, I think the biggest thing is whenever it's time to get down to business, man, we ain't fucking around.
We work.
We putting everything aside. Like, nah, it's time. This is the mission. You know what I'm saying? We got to take
But
those
times
steps.
are different now, though.
Yeah.
Do y'all feel like y'all equally put in this
We
much?
was driving in 12. Full car.
Oh, my goodness. To go back
Man,
to
it's
these
hard to
stories,
get my
boy.
daughters to drive. Remember, it was tough. I'm like, they
Yeah.
just now, they 17, 18 years old, got their license.
Yeah.
I'm like, back then, you know, we was doing all
But
types
you
of
had
stuff.
remember you had that
That-
Bronco? Or
yeah,
what
that
was
Jimmy.
It
It was
Jimmy.
a Jimmy. Y'all remember
He was
them
fixing on the
Jimmy, them
for a
box
minute.
Jimmy.
Trying
Around the
to get
neighborhood.
around.
We got in trouble too, though.
A lot of
several times. His mama said he couldn't hang out with me or something. I was a bad influence. I'm like, what?
Bro, you know.
Because we got caught in Westport.
Yeah. No, we was riding around.
And they
And then one of my mama's friends see me in the car, snitched on me, Cause she was out.
Yeah. No,
damn.
we had good. We did a lot of things, but we had a lot of positive influence. Like even with Mr. Brooks and Dylan. My mom was working for a nonprofit at the time, so Ed Hot, and so we did a lot. We had a lot of good influences around us. I believe that's why we kind of stuck with a lot of core values. Having goals, building those things, but we still, we still kids.
Well, we was
still
in
gotta
stuff.
get out there. No, we did a lot.
That's good. So if someone were to look at y'all's past and try to judge or predict what it is that your future would look like, you're saying that they're two polar opposites?
No,
Is that what you're saying?
No, they would have seen it. They know.
They would have seen it.
Yeah, they know for it.
But y'all just were being kids.
Yeah. And then trying ideas, man. We was always, like you said, we always had a goal.
Yeah.
We
We
always
had
had a
parties,
goal.
and I was in there cooking.
Yep.
We had a buffet. People drinking underage and a buffet.
Hey, you got for the crowd, man. How old was y'all throwing these parties, fam?
14, 15.
Yo.
My man, so check this out. Let's
we
paint the
didn't have-
picture.
But we didn't have.
high school.
You got to think about this though. We didn't have the technology now. We had two-way pagers and little cell phones. They didn't even have pictures. You couldn't even send nobody no picture or nothing like that back then. At that time. So when we was doing all that, I mean, like,
No, it was real flyers. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
We had
Nigga
real
knocking.
flyers. Yeah. Handing them mugs out. Then he had an older brother. And that's how we got to like the older crowd and stuff like that.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
people in the neighborhood.
yeah.
All
our friends has always been older than us.
Yeah, they always been older.
Yeah, they always been older.
That's crazy.
We was always the
We
young.
was the kids throwing parties. Had all of the older people up in that mug, kicking it.
We gotta acknowledge the I feel like the elephant in the room, bro. So y'all got these ideas, y'all been cool, y'all been friends, but y'all married. When y'all introduce these women to this goal, this vision, this dream, how does that happen? Like is it like do you guys meet together with your wives and or like do y'all keep it separate? Like talk to me about how that work or to make that work.
Well, with me is telling her what I'm gonna do and then do it.
Right on.
I don't think it's that serious. But then again, I recently just got divorced.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm
but-
sorry. So maybe not do that?
No, I didn't do it in the
joking.
beginning.
I'm just messing with you, bro.
No, just to say, I just want to be clear and just put that out there.
Yeah. So
But-
you're divorced.
Now, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to
13
hear that.
years. No, it was all right. No, it's all right. We good. You know, we good. I
But
was
you-
never her type.
Hold on a second.
No, just-
I'll be back. Hold on. What you talking about, Phil?
No, I don't know. I'm just kind of like I like to keep moving. I work a lot. At one point I was, I work a lot sometimes, but sometimes, I feel like I have to, at that time. But I don't know. Some people, sometimes what you're gonna get into before you get in it.
Yeah.
And you felt like you needed to make a switch because of the fact that she wouldn't support that.
I felt like I needed to make a switch for my daughters. Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going down that pathway real quick.
Oh, shit.
So just real quick. So you're saying you needed to make that path for your daughters because I'm assuming that your daughters were being exposed to something that you didn't necessarily like.
Just like how he was saying, coming home unhappy or arguing or just feeling some type of way. Your kids see that, everybody sees that, just like, you don't want to be you want to be on the top of the food chain. Sometimes, the energy don't lie. Sometimes you don't even have to say anything. You can just look on a person's face and just be like, man, you all right? You cool? Yeah, everything's all right? And that's how, and that's how I was getting, and my daughters are smart, So, they pay attention. They love their daddy. So we good. We got a good relationship.
What are their ages?
18. She's at the our kids is at the restaurant. So
Our oldest,
yeah, our oldest kids is at the restaurant. So 18, 13, and 12.
What was that conversation like? Like, hey, check this out. So I know me and your mom are together. We need to separate, all that type of stuff. What was that conversation
It
like?
was tough. It was really tough. But they kind of understood because they watched the build up. So they kind of knew, but they didn't. But good thing is that I didn't do it when they're like super older, because I got two with my ex-wife. So I didn't wait till they were like 18, 19 and then do it because it feels like, well, the studies say, right, at that age, that's when they really have problems when they get divorced because they end up blaming themselves. I didn't do anything like that. I kind of, I don't know. I felt like I did it at the right time.
There's a lot of people that'll stick together with their wives until after the kids leave the house type of thing.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that. I didn't, only because, no, I'm serious.
No, I'm
because
serious, yeah.
What is the point? You wasted your life. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know. I just didn't want to do it because I didn't want to continue to. Never mind.
Didn't want to be unhappy.
I just don't want to feel like anything. You know what I'm saying? I want to be with the person that want to be with me. And I want to be with I want that. I love being a husband though, to be honest. I really do. I was the best husband.
I think it's important that we talk about this, man, because when you talk about like choosing yourself in the sense of understanding that whatever you bring to the table for your children is an extension of how you feel internally. So if you feel like you're not receiving what it is that you need to be able to thrive on whatever it may be your purpose, who you are as a man or whatever the case may be, if you're not getting that internal support or that compass.
Yeah, it'll tell you, you'll lose yourself. And that's what I felt. I lost myself for a second. And you remember, Ron, I called him, I told him several times. It was times where, like I said, I'm not an emotional person, but when I'm at work and I just start feeling like I'm grieving, because every time I go home, I feel some type of way, that's when I knew, like, yeah, we got a problem. Yeah, I ain't like that. That's how I knew you got a problem. I recognized it, and I wanted to change it, but, and I did. Because the show must still go on.
The show must go on, brother.
One monkey don't stop no show.
That's correct.
Hey,
You ever
I
heard
think
that
it's
song?
oh yeah. Come on, bro.
If you want to leave, go on, leave. Because one thing that I don't know
Let's
for
make
sure
sure we add
is
that
one
clip in
monkey
there.
don't stop no show.
No monkey don't stop no.
No.
Hey, I just want to say we've been going at it for a while, and I really appreciate the candor, the honesty, the transparency. Although that there may have been a regimented list of questions and all that, but ultimately, this is about candid conversation. This is about you as a viewer or an audience to being able to look at their story and be able to see what you can take away from it. Mm-hmm. You got two black men that grew up in the urban core of this city that said that we know that we're going to be something. We don't know exactly what that something is. And even with the fact that it started out as making panini sandwiches, now you guys are serving octopus tacos.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is just being able, and probably one of my favorite things on a menu, but I think one of the biggest things for the young people is to realize is just get started. You may not know exactly how it's going to end, but just get started. And then maybe one day when you start, your best friend will walk in the same restaurant and say, hey, I got you. Maybe not even initially, but just consistency, just like with this podcast. It's not the fact that it's just getting started, and we're going to keep being consistent because we want to highlight all of the wonderful things here in Kansas City, Missouri. And so if you have a story that you want to bring to the path in Kansas City that's going to highlight what an amazing place this is, then please bring that story forward. It's not my audience to be able to talk about the ways that we're continuing to be separated as a city, but my goal is to be able to bring us together. I pray that you hearing their stories, it gives you a better perspective on why you want to support Urban Cafe. Not just because of the fact that you want to eat and get a decent meal, but the fact that you heard their story. The fact that you understand that they got a dream and that we can support that dream by just crowding together and saying, hey, maybe even once a week, I'm going to make sure that I go take my guest or my client to Urban on 34th and Troost just to be able to support these brothers. We can't talk about all the ways that this city is failing, and we're not going to talk about all the ways that our city can thrive, and we need to corral around each other to be able to make that happen. Is that safe to say, fellas?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And so, again, you got owners, Ron, Justin, owners of Urban Cafe, 34. What's the exact address?
3420 Troost.
3420 Troost. Although that the focus is
It's just elevated dining, man.
elevated dining,
Yeah.
Yo.
New American.
New American.
It's American food.
I love it. And so, if you could do me a favor and just shout out your social media handles, that way they can follow you on social media.
Yeah, it's Urban Kansas City. Yeah, Urban Kansas City that's everywhere though. That's Facebook, Instagram. We don't have a TikTok. This is my personal TikTok.
Okay. And then you talked earlier about just you guys actually have some really cool things coming this summer for the patio. And can you tell them just a little bit about what's to come for Urban here within the next few months or next year?
Oh yeah, we got actually shoot as we speak, we got the patio getting built up right now with all the little equipment we've been building up with and kind of piecing together. We got new menus coming, we got new art in that, and every season we change it up.
Yeah.
We change up the menu, the drink menu, the food menu, the art. We switch it up every season just to keep it fresh. We always gonna keep our our core things, the heavy hitters, the favorites, but we always gonna add something new. So, y'all always got something to come to, something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And then as far as the attire, I know that y'all got an upscale type of environment. Can anybody come in, or do you got to wear a certain thing? Or
Oh shoot, you come as you are. I think the environment is just, it paints it for you. If you feel like you got to come in here and dress up. We ain't gonna turn you away because you don't got on slacks and a tie.
As long as you got the money to pay for it, we get it.
Right. Don't play. Don't walk out.
Right.
On us, you know what I'm saying?
Hey,
We gonna chase you down.
I gotta say, my boy Justin is a monster out here. I gotta say, hey, my dude, hey, if y'all come down there with that silliness, Justin will put you out that joint. You gotta.
We had several times.
Yeah, we don't play, man.
I said, hey man, y'all 34th and Troost, boy, y'all got security. He was like, I don't need security.
We don't need it. I'm like, we just serving food. We're a restaurant.
Yeah.
I'm like, somebody want to come in there and what are you gonna do? I'm like, there's knives, there's
My
everything
man
in
to
there.
be
Don't be
spatula in hand. They come at like, we need reinforcement, boss. He sits that mug down and then he goes out and makes sure that everything is good.
Yo,
That's
we
that
about
dude,
business.
Justin.
We about business, for real.
That's it.
Hey, did we miss anything?
Yes, it's A South, Terminal A South. The terminals is closed. It seemed like that restaurant when we signed the deal, it seemed like it was the plans was to fail in the beginning. It seems like, I think because of they wanted the whole minority business and they pushed for that. But then again, they didn't have any space for the minority businesses. So they stuck us in an area where the terminal is in international side, and it's just not open.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a plan in the future to open right now as we speak. So we'll see. Well, that's a franchise, so we don't actually own it. We just get the monthly residuals on whatever it comes. So. Yes, mentor Mr. Brooks. He showed me how to tie a tie.
Are you talking about Alvin Brooks, bro?
Alvin Brooks.
Okay.
He showed me how to tie a tie. He set me up. Well, I did the application process to Ameristar. That was my first professional job, and I was like 17, 18 years old. He was there. He helped me with the questions and all that stuff. I went through the interview process, and then from there I was in a high volume Premier Steakhouse, and I worked my way all the way up, and then there I just decided to go to culinary school. So the people, when I just had really good influences around me. I mean, like I still did whatever I wanted to do, but it's just that having people like mentors and stuff really helped me a lot with moving forward.
I think it's really important that we understand the importance of, it's one thing to study for something, it's another thing to be exposed to something. And so as we talk about exposure, that's what it was, that somebody exposed you to. It's one thing to read about culinary school or being an engineer, or in my case, being a chief with a fire department. It's another thing for you to let me do a ride along so I can actually see what patient contact look like.
Exactly.
For you to actually see what is that prepping process like.
Yeah.
For you to see some of these, what does your journeyman look like? And then what, more importantly, how does a journeyman influence or affect what it is that I do as an engineer, right? And so I think it's super important that as you're watching this show, and if you have the opportunity of creating spaces for mentorship, these kids need to be able to touch, feel, and actually do the work that they're choosing to do, because it might actually influence them to continue to pursue it, or it might tell them, hey, you know what, I'm done with this. I want to do something different. But
Yeah.
I think we need to create a space for both of those thoughts to be able to coexist with one another.
And my mom. My mom was, she's a hustler. She always was out there in the community doing a lot of things. She took, it was me and my brothers. I don't have any sisters or anything, so it's 4 of us. But she took us out to really nice restaurants where guys used to take her out on dates. I could tell it was like that. And then she'd be like, you know what? It's a new restaurant I heard about. Let's go up here. So we went to like really fancy restaurants, and she made us dress up every once in a while. And she made that time for us, where we do things like that as a group, as a family. She makes sure she walk in front of the door. She sit there in front of the door until somebody grab the door and open it for her. So, and, and doors, all that little stuff. So I remember going to like Sky's restaurant. Y'all remember that restaurant, the Hyatt? They had the Sky, restaurant that used to rotate.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So it was there on my birthday. I used to go to, do stuff like that. Or, she had me try sushi and different things. This is at a young age. So, and then from there, I just, went to a premier steakhouse, and then 4 Diamond hotels, and then, all that little stuff like that in Chicago. And
So he's single, but you better bring the bread if you want to holler at my boy Justin.
No.
That's what you said.
I ain't
That's
looking
what you
for
said.
nothing. I'm
bro.
out here. I'm working. I'm chilling.
So
I
no-
got my daughters. My daughters is enough. They a handful. They
No dating.
Look at that look. Man. I don't have time for anybody but my girls.
I hear you. You got another one?
Yes, I have a question for.
Shoot, man. Like you said, we said we got in some trouble. We was into a lot of stuff, but I think it's we never really gave up. So, if we had an idea, we thought about how to go get it or what we could be doing, and then we'd go after it. Sometimes it didn't work. A lot of times it didn't work, but we just kept on pushing, go again, like you said, you keep on calling, you keep on knocking at the door. Eventually one of these doors is going to open. But it just takes you to have the courage to kind of explore that, to have the faith in yourself, faith in God first for sure, but just the faith in your ability. People don't know your ability. You got it inside you, but you got to bring it out. And some people make you keep it inside because they make you feel like you don't believe in it, or they don't believe in it, or they can't see it. It's logical to them. But if you got it in you, you're just going to keep on going, man. And just, you're not going to, just don't doubt yourself. The more you listen to your gut, the louder your gut will start speaking up. At first it's going to be faint. Like, man, should I do this? Then it's going to turn into, nah, I need to do this. Nah, I need to go this direction. The more you listen to what's inside, But I will say this. Every time Justin came to me about something, or every time he told me about an experience, I always had in the back of my mind, like, you know what? God made you see that for a reason. Mm-hmm. He put you in a position. But not only that, like, you could have put anybody in that position, they probably wouldn't have seen what you seen. They, even from whenever, working for the hospitals and the doctors and stuff like that, it could have been all kinds of chefs sitting in there, but they probably wouldn't have tuned in the same way. Or whenever he was younger, being exposed to these restaurants or just being around people, like, a lot of people was exposed, but only you took what you took away from that, so it was meant for you, what I'm saying? No matter if it was planned, no matter if you planned it, it was meant for you, you was put in that room, but you walked away with the game. Mm-hmm. Well, how many other people was in that room? They wasn't thinking the same. So I always seen it as, I always see it as God sent, no matter what, whenever I sit down and like really ponder about it and wrap my head around it, just like us walking around trying to find jobs, or trying to figure out how we gonna build this and put it with this. If we only had this piece, we go after that one piece, it was all about us being in the right position, seeing the right opportunities, seizing the opportunities, knowing which ones not to go with, listening to ourselves, and then just kind of, just staying headstrong on what we know we want for ourselves out of our lives.
Amen. I'm going to do this just so we can wind it down. I really appreciate you guys. I know that you guys are incredibly busy with the restaurant. And so I'm going to close this out in prayer. All right. And then, but before I do that, I just want to make sure that we just acknowledge the fact that God said where 2 or 3 are gathered, that he'll always be in the midst. And the thing about it is that sometimes you might feel like you're traveling alone down this journey that you're going down. And the thing about it is that as you heard Ron say that he had to trust that what was being put before him was God's plan and then act upon that. So the biggest thing that I want to be able to make sure that the young people hear from this particular story is that there's going to always be that fear component. You never know if it's going to work. But the biggest thing is that making sure that you trust God more than you trust yourself. And most of the time that you hear this overarching question of, what do you want to do when you get older? A lot of the time you're already doing what it is that you've been designed to do. It may develop into more as you get older or some of those things. But ultimately, these brothers is hustlers. They slanging food, but at one period, it may have been something else. They just figured out that they're going to do something to being able to utilize their skill set of being good communicators, being people, just being really good with numbers. I'm saying pay attention to what you're good at, okay? And so just real quick, we're going to just say a quick word of prayer, and then we're going to close it out. Father, we just acknowledge your sovereignty. Lord God, we understand and know here at Let's Talk Shop KC podcast that it starts and ends with you. So, Lord God, as we seek your plan, open the eyes of our hearts, God, that we see you in everything that we do. Lord Father, everything we do is to be able to receive that job well done. So, Lord God, as we seek your will and seek your plan, Lord Father, please speak to us. Speak to our hearts, speak to our minds, send us signs and let us know exactly what it is that you've designed for us to do. Lord Father, I thank you for Ron and Justin being able to be transparent enough to let someone else see their story. But the biggest thing is that you can be able to see is how you had a part in Urban Cafe. So I pray that as the Kansas Cityans listen in on this podcast, that they support these brothers. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Let's Talk Shop KC podcast. Tune in. Boom.
Yeah, I got a story to tell. I know they want me to fail. If they throw me into a cell, I know wife she paying the bill. Cause I can't afford to be quiet. My city is dying and children are crying. Be alert, not devour. The enemy's prowling you just like a lion. But we got the keys, I promise you. Hold on to the peace inside of you. No, I'm not alone. You're not alone. You got an army who follows you. It's time to rise up. Lift your